Chair and members, the logic of removing the powers of the Public Prosecutor from the Attorney General of the Republic is a logic which is justifiable and which is based on international best practice in many jurisdictions of the world. It will be a clawback of our democracy to again return the powers of the Public Prosecutor to the Attorney General of the Republic, in my humble view. This is why. The Attorney General is the chief legal advisor of government, period. The work of the Attorney General is to advise government agencies so that they conduct their activities within the law. The Public Prosecutor has a unique role of ensuring that the criminal justice is realized in the country. It's a completely different role. It will be a clawback on our democracy to try and lump the powers of the chief legal government advisor with those of the Public Prosecutor together. First of all, it's not neat. Already, even whatever is left of the Attorney General, that mandate is overwhelming on the state law office. You can imagine the number of legal advisories by everyone in every ministry, department, agency across the Kenya on a daily basis. They are doing a contract here, a tender here, an administrative issue here. It's overwhelming. We've just passed in cabinet recently, I think it will come before the Houses of Parliament, a position on decentralization of the office of the Attorney General. They can't deliver. Sometimes we blame institutions, yet the capacity has been held back. So in a nutshell, it will be wrong doctrine to claw back on the advancement of the 2010 Constitution of separating the Chief Legal Advisor's office, who is the Attorney General, with the office of the Public Prosecutor. Initially, they were together. So already, even what is left is overwhelming. The solution for the ODPP is, again, other than the usual issues about capacity and more personnel and more resources, which is the song of every ministry, every department across governments, not just in Kenya, in all countries. It's about how we need more capacity, we need more resources, and I'm not underestimating the role of resources and capacity in delivery of services. But this is my view. If I were the Public Prosecutor of Kenya, if I were the Attorney General of Kenya, let's give those two examples because they are the ones which have been raised on the floor here. There are certain matters, because of their gravity, those matters, with or without capacity and resources and all the other things that are lacking, that must be handled seriously, carefully, and at the highest level. I'll give you an example. Why we've been losing so many cases is because you have matters like this, of this type, the Mackenzie type of matters. And you'll see, and I've nothing against the younger advocates and the younger, some of the young advocates are very good people, including prosecutors. But there are some things that cannot be processed in any other way. You're a legal professional, and you know the meaning of seniority in the legal profession, even in terms of persuasion of the judiciary. You know what it means. And there are some things which you cannot cover them up. The reason why we have senior counsel in the bar is because they hold a certain card that only a senior counsel holds that card. The judge is forced to be patient, and even when the judge is uncomfortable, to be respectful. The senior counsel, to make their cases, they can even address the court for hours, which a young advocate who was admitted last night will even be dismissed before they greet the judge, especially if the judge has woken up with, maybe they are stressed, and they are also human beings. And there are things which only senior counsel, even within the senior counsel, there is the order of seniority. There are some lawyers who will get away with anything. I remember during my practice days, there is one of our colleagues who passed on, the oldest advocate at that time. And he would come to court late, 30 minutes late, and sit down. Of course, the other matters will be put aside and his matter will be called. And he wakes up and says, "Oh, Judge, I'm sorry, I'm late because I was attending my wife's birthday." And because the judge is the grand student of this fellow, there is nothing he can do. What am I saying with regard to ODPP, Chair? I believe matters like this must be prosecuted by the Director of Public Prosecution in person. Even in civil litigation, there are matters which I would expect that the Attorney General of the Republic must prosecute them in person, because they are lawyers. That way, you are, at least even in terms of optics, the country and the justice system, even the judiciary, which is dispensing justice, is aware this is how seriously we are taking this matter. You send a young lawyer to handle a complex matter of monumental implications on our justice and security system. Some young lawyers there, this is their first, they have not even done 5 years. How do you expect to win that case? So the improvement must be within the existing institution. The ODPP is the right structure, is the right institution. But I'm afraid, even as much as there are legitimate grievances on how we could improve service delivery, I am not persuaded at the moment as a country, and I'm not blaming any particular state official. We are not taking matters seriously. This country, Chair, has this unfortunate culture of people in high positions enjoying the privileges of office and not taking up the responsibilities of that office. And it's across board. There are so many big men and women in this country. And they are so big, some matters, they think all those are small matters. They will only appear when it's necessary. I would argue, and I don't know whether that should be part of the prosecution policy of the country. I hope once we review the prosecution policy of the country, it will pass through the Houses of Parliament and it will be debated. Certain matters must be handled directly and personally by the Director of Public Prosecutions in person. There's seniority, there's clout, there's experience, there's leverage, so you will not lose them. But returning matters to the AG will even complicate the matter, because it's already swamped with a lot of work in giving routine advisory to government and also the civil litigation side. Then Senator Okech asked about our preparedness. I think our problem is not about preparedness. Our problem is elsewhere. It's about the efficacy of our institutions across the board. And the problem is, again, our lack of adequate institutional patriotism to know that every institution plays a part in our society, in our democracy, and they must deliver. There is a bit of a gap in that area, and I could try to read the mind of the distinguished senator from Migori. And we are working on them. especially the equipment for search and rescue, and we have already made progress. And the challenge has not been with equipment. And I believe more or less we have exhausted all the people that would have saved at the moment, unless there are rare cases. We've been able to complete that process, unless there are rare cases which might emerge. The slow nature of the recovery of bodies is what I explained. It's a scientific process. It's governed by international protocols. And the way criminals of this nature operate, because it is organized crime, they don't just bury people. Part of the work is to conceal the graves. So we are not just looking for places where looks like it was dug up. No. We are looking everywhere. What we've done in the last 2 weeks, we have opened security roads. Every 100 acres has a security road around it, out of the 800 acres. And the rest of the ranch, every 500 acres, is a security road around it, so that we can now do the search for graves and identification of graves meter by meter, centimeter by centimeter, millimeter by millimeter. And it's a very, very slow process. Some of the graves we have discovered, this crook had grown some crops on top of the graves. So you find some kunde, some vegetables growing on a mass grave, just to cover up. Others, there are structures that looks like a house, inside is a grave. Others in very unlikely places. So that will take a bit of time. Deterrence, I agree with Senator Okech. And that's why I said it's one thing to bring the crimes, the elements of the crime, but this must be connected with the procedural tightening of the process. To once you're suspected of certain crime, the procedure is different. And then now we strengthen our institutions so that that process is not abused to punish people. That's how other countries have made some progress in this area have done. We make it impossible for the procedure to be abused, so that if you disagree with somebody, either because of politics or whatever differences, you go and put them on a track for suspicion of terrorism, so that they are treated this differently for many years, abuse of the process. So I would expect, therefore, different procedural tracks for these serious crimes, including the kind of punishment that comes with it to deter future people. I also agree with the distinguished senator for Migori on the question of, yes, this mandate is about Shakahola, but I've seen your terms of reference, Chair, also include general terrain, the general terrain of radicalization, indoctrination by religious groups. So if I've seen your mandate, I think it's general. What has not come out, and I agree with the senator from Migori, is that we must now remove ourselves at some point from the specific suspect and look at this issue as one space called the religious space, and where all these things operate. And I've been very careful all the time to say churches, mosques, temples, houses of worship of whatever nature, including people who worship elsewhere, and those who do not believe in God, because there are those who say they are atheists. But I believe that the lack of faith is also a faith, that you don't believe in God. That is a faith. So they should be cornered there also, because they cannot say, oh, as we are not religious organizations, but they lack faith in God. So they believe there is no God. So that is a faith. So nobody should be left out of your ambit. Even those who worship Satan or others who worship whatever they worship, the ancestors, others don't worship anything. They believe in not worshiping anything. So, Mr. Chairman, nobody, I repeat, nobody should escape your dragnet. You must catch everybody, as suggested by our brother, the senator from Migori. Chair, just one small item there, that there's a reason why there's too much church-related attention, because of this particular incident that caused all this inquiry emanated from the Christian faith and a particular preacher of the Christian faith. We should not be so obsessed with only that incident and forget that faith as the other faiths involved. But the one thing I wanted to add is that a few years ago, we had a similar upsurge of serious crimes globally, perpetuated by perverts of the Islamic faith, fundamentalists, people hiding under the Islam religion to kill people. Some of it is still ongoing. This country has suffered a lot. Many countries in the world have suffered a lot by people who are causing mayhem and death, hiding under the Islamic faith. If you look at the measures we took in the early 2013, especially the Security Laws Amendment Act of 2014, which controversial it was, by the way, is what has sustained this country. We would have suffered much more harm if we had not passed those amendments act, those miscellaneous amendment laws. Now, so my view is that this incident that has been perpetuated by people hiding under the Christian faith, we should now look at the existing laws and see what is new addition to the existing framework. Otherwise, the framework is there, and you can excuse why the focus now is on the Christian faith, because the perpetrator of the triggering crime for the current national inquiry is of the Christian faith. Lastly, why have I said in my response that the presidential task force, in terms of regulatory framework, I was not trying to inhibit anything. In any case, lawmaking is a function of parliament. But I'm a member of the executive. So I'm here to defend what the executive is or hopes will tackle. And because there is already a task force, executive initiated task force led by, which was appointed by the president, we hope for us in the executive, we restrain from making other comments, because now there is an executive initiated process until it brings its recommendations, processes them through the appointing authority, and then now we can present them for incorporation into as our ideas as the executive. But the mandate and the role of legislation is entirely with the houses of parliament. Thank you.
So, CS, you